Welcome back to the Rewatchers Room podcast. Today we have a lot to talk about because next week is a really exciting week. Tell Me Lies season 3 is finally back on our screens. Also, fully gonna expose myself here. My boyfriend was watching my podcast and he's like, I don't think your microphone's on. Girl, you want to be a podcaster, you out here with a microphone that's off, please. Anyway, you can probably tell because the audio's already better in this episode, but my microphone is officially connected and working. So like I said, today we will be diving deep into my favorite scenes from Tell Me Lies. So we're going to go through and rewatch in the spirit and beauty of my name here, the Rewatchers Room. We're going to rewatch some of my favorite scenes. We're also going to go through some season 3 predictions because there is a book and I have read the book. If you haven't, I do recommend it. I have been more thoroughly impressed and enjoying the TV adaptation. I just like how they have expanded on the characters. There's more to work with. I feel like I emotionally connected more to the TV show as opposed to the book, but I do recommend the book. So there is an ending that you can kind of base your predictions off of if you want to, but I also want to say that 90% of that book is not in the show. Like I feel like the best way to put it is that book was like a starting point for them and the idea of this show and premise of it, but the show itself holds such a deeper meaning and such a deeper perspective and outlook into these characters' lives. Like there is so much more to work with in the TV show as opposed to the book. So I do want to try to predict season 3 a little bit with the book, but also pretty much based off of what we've seen in season 1 and season 2 in the show. Also, the first time I ever watched the show, I started to do breakdowns of each character, what this show is, and like pretty much a psychological deep dive into this show because there's so much that you can really pull from this. There's so much psychological manipulation in that show. It's pretty easy to break down, but we're going to get into it today. Given the show that Tell Me Lies is, I'm not necessarily pulling on favorite scenes, but scenes that I feel were pivotal in the show and had me the most jaw dropped, but let's go through a few. Kind of funny, we're starting from the end here. Also, major spoiler warning in this whole entire podcast episode. Obviously, if you have not seen season 1 or 2 at all, this will hold many spoilers and very important spoilers. So, unfortunately, log out if you have not seen season 1 or 2. Number 1, season 1 finale, Mr. Brightside scene. What the helly? I honestly, and here's my thing, I read the book after, so the TV show for me was first time reactions. I was like, who recommended this show to me? But yes, this scene here, season 1 finale, Mr. Brightside scene, it's almost predictable, but it's not, because Steven is diabolical, and Diana in season 1 was an enabling queen. Homegirl was enabling all the terrible, toxic, bad behavior, but also in season 2, way more. So that scene alone, honestly, was just crazy to witness. That is actually the most borderline psycho thing you could ever do to somebody. They came to the party together, obviously, and they had such a tumultuous fight before that was really weird. As we all know, Lucy and Steven's relationship is very heavy on how each other's emotions are feeling. Steven very much likes when the women that he's with are scared of him and feel like he has complete control over them. And Lucy and her emotions and all critical thinking skills in season 1 are in Steven's pocket. She really wasn't thinking a lot for herself in season 1, but especially near the end, so it was really sad to see. As much as my homegirl Lucy irritates me a lot because she does self-inflict a lot in this show, there were a lot of times where she was a victim, and this was a moment where she was absolutely a victim, but then it falls into the Evan scene, and you're like, okay, back to square one with Lucy, girl. Back to square one. Number 2 for me would be this scene here, is when all is revealed about Macy's death. I really like that the way that this was done in the TV adaptation, and I really very much prefer it. It's very different in the book, actually. I don't want to give any spoilers away. I think you should go and read it if you're curious what I mean by the differences, or you can just Google it if you really don't give a crap to read. But it is very different in the way that Macy's death is exposed and revealed. So when it comes to that scene, I honestly just really liked how it was directed and done. And the way that it was written, like I said earlier, for the TV show. There was a lot of anticipation. There were a few moments where you could kind of catch on to it and be like, Steven, you are definitely involved in this one way or another. So when Lucy did finally get it out of Steven and he confessed, I was like, oh my goodness, here we go. More gaslighting, more lying. Because the way that he just tried to victimize himself so much and literally started sobbing, crying. Steven's tears and crying moments are hilarious. I'm like, dude, you couldn't even try to cry if you wanted to. What is that? Like, ugh. Shout out to Jackson White. He's doing a phenomenal job acting Steven DeMarco because I cannot stand this guy. This is probably my least favorite fictional character that I've ever watched. I'm thoroughly entertained, but oh my goodness, this guy is something else. Number 3 would be Diana and Steven at the hospital when Steven has like a panic attack, and Diana realizes that the rib injury that the doctor points out is definitely from all the information that Lucy had obviously told her about Macy's death and Steven being involved. I love that scene for many reasons, because obviously we as viewers know, but Diana doesn't. And those are always really good moments in TV where the viewers know what's going on, but the characters in the show are completely oblivious and they have no idea. And in this case, obviously, Diana has been told about the Macy situation, but she did very much deflect from that and avoid it until we saw her, master plan at the end of season 2. But anyway, at this point, Diana hasn't seen the photos that Steven has on his computer of Macy. That's why I do really like... Not a lot of emphasis on but one of the more entertaining and pivotal moments in that season for sure, because she obviously goes back to their place and that's where she discovers these pictures and realizes, ooh, Lucy was not lying. Yeah, girl. Where do you think she got that from? Tumblr? Like, that was important and that was needed. I was not going to stand any second of Diana not believing that Steven couldn't be involved in this whole situation with Macy. Girl, please, put your thinking cap on. Put it on! Number 4 actually is kind of like an entire episode, but there's little scenes in there that definitely make the episode. But it's when they go to Evan's family's lake house in season 1. That is a really shape-shifting moment for their friendships, their lives, their relationships, and just everything in general. Evan realizing that none of them are actual genuine friends and Steven's a piece of shit is really entertaining. Because yeah, sometimes there are moments in college or in life in general, this is inevitable, but you're gonna have phases where you realize sometimes the friendships you're in are not actually serving you, and you have to ask yourself, who are these people I'm surrounding myself with, and are they good for me? Are they adding to my life, or are they just taking away from my life and my success in general? So when Evan does have that really emotional moment outside by the pool where he's like, man, none of us are true friends. Like, Steven, stop bossing me around telling me what to do. I really appreciate that because it's important for all of them to kind of realize that none of them are actually really there for each other, especially the girls. All they do is just get on each other for all of their terrible choices when they could really just be a little bit more supporting and understanding of the fact that they're just 3 young girls experiencing college for the first time. But a lot of their friendship is made up on, no, you're doing this and it's worse, and you're doing that and you're doing this. But come on, girls, like, y'all are doing something that's definitely not anything that somebody wants to be condoning or accepting, but nitpicking and figuring out who's doing something worse is not going to do anything for your friendships, and that is not the way to support each other in college. So that whole scene with Evan's lake house was just really important because not that it changed much in their friendships. That's not really what this show is about. It is highlighting the tumultuous and toxicity of college and friendships and relationships and manipulation and gaslighting and all the things that it is. But in general, that scene alone, I do enjoy, and I was happy we got a moment of someone being like, none of us are real friends. I was really hoping for that. Moving on, Lucy confronting Steven in season 2. This is the hallway scene that is really important because it's a vulnerable moment that we see from the two of them, and is really rare, obviously, when Steven cares to understand anything of anyone's emotions besides his own. It's important because Lucy saying what she does and saying that she loved him and all he seems to want to do is punish her for that and make this a game, where for her, she genuinely just loved him. And although there's a lot of layers to that statement because season 1 and their relationship in season 1 was very much a roller coaster, and there's a lot to digest and unpack there, but in this moment alone, I felt so bad for her because in her eyes, you could see she's just been traumatized, wrecked, emotionally abused, verbally abused, and completely distorted from her own reality. Like, you come into college super vulnerable, and now she's extremely vulnerable because this is obviously not the person that she wants to be. And honestly, it's really weird because Steven doesn't show much in this scene, but his facial expression does lead me to believe that that line and few words that she said to him here kind of got in his head a little bit. Okay, and this one is like multiple scenes kind of put together, but the wedding flashbacks in general are so perfect because they leave you wondering. They make you definitely want to keep watching the show, and the way that it constantly flashes back and then goes present, I'm a huge fan of that. A lot of people aren't, which is totally fair because sometimes people just lose the rhythm and they're like, wait, where are we at in this story? Which is totally fine. But I unfortunately rewatch things way too much. So my understanding of the past and present and Tell Me Lies, I very much understand what's going on. Okay, and as for season 3 predictions, let's get into it. I feel as though with this whole Brie situation, everyone wondering and pondering on who she's talking to. I'm honestly torn on whether this is going to be a huge reveal or it's just going to be maybe somebody that we never even meet, like someone from her past. Her foster family, foster sister, anything like that. I believe the creator of Tell Me Lies went ahead and said that it isn't Oliver on the phone because a lot of people were just putting that together because that's pretty predictable and obvious. With the way Tell Me Lies goes and how this show is, it didn't seem right that it would be Oliver because how predictable is that? But I believe and wholeheartedly almost hope, to be honest, that it's someone from her past, like a foster sister or someone. As for Lucy and Steven, I don't think this season is going to end with them together, honestly. I really hope it doesn't. If you have read the book, then you know how that ends. And I don't want to spoil the book for anyone, but I am curious if they're going to keep the book ending or if they're going to change it. I don't want to see them together. I don't want to see a redemption arc from Steven. I don't want to see him get any better. I'd honestly love to see him get worse and make the worst decisions he's ever made, even though the Macy thing is probably the worst thing you could ever do in your life. But if he could get more controlling, more manipulative, and gaslight Lucy more, and her finally realize that she needs to leave this, I'll take it. I don't want that for my girl, obviously. Without a doubt, Steven will be at the worst of his behavior. This is their last season, and they're going to throw everything that they can at us with this man. As for Lucy, I hope she does win in the end, and I hope there's no huge revenge. What we're seeing in the flashbacks is her ending up with Max and her at a better stage, I guess. I don't know if she'll ever fully heal after a relationship like that with Steven and after what she went through and altering her brain chemistry by being with that man so early on in college, but I would hope that she just ends up living a life that is nowhere near him. I'm very scared that they're going to make them end up together though. Something about that is telling me that they'll end up together. But I predict Lucy also probably at the worst of her decisions. There is clear indicators within the trailer that she's going to get with other people and she's going to dabble in some new romantic and intimate relationships, no doubt. That will definitely be something that Steven's not going to be okay with, which is going to lead to more terrible decisions for her and Steven. And Steven definitely inflicting the most terrible and worst pain onto Lucy. That is my prediction for the two of them, that everything just gets worse for both of them, and hopefully they don't end up together because of Lucy's realization that this man needs to actually fall off the face of the earth. My prediction with the Pippa and Diana situation is that they actually are interesting. I like them together. I posted something on my TikTok about how when you rewatch the show, you do kind of realize how much they actually hint at them being together, and they definitely did show that a lot in season 2, mid to the end of it. And I definitely don't mind them together, and if anything, would prefer to see a woman-woman relationship in this show. I love any sort of representation like that. However, I hope that this relationship, if anything, is something for the better for them, because Diana is also a victim of everything that she went through with Steven. Although she inflicted a lot of pain onto other people and so much chaos and terrible, terrible actions in her life, she definitely went through a lot with Steven. And if anything, I would just hope that she can break free from that and find someone better. And Pippa went through a lot in season 2, so same thing with her. I would just hope that the better could come for her. With them being together, I just hope that it's not another toxic relationship, and if anything, maybe we can get a nice and endearing relationship in this show for once. But with the fate of this show, we're gonna have to see. I definitely believe we're gonna get some sort of Evan and Oliver confrontation. Evan's definitely gonna say something to Oliver this season about everything that's been happening, and he didn't come back for no good reason. There's gonna be a big moment with him, either with Brie or with Evan, or all three of them. But there's going to be something with Evan for sure. And if you go back and watch the trailer that they posted on their Instagram, I think it's like their official one for season 3, you will see a moment of Evan charging into Oliver's office. So I think maybe and hopefully that's a scene of him going at it and being like, you're crazy and weird for doing that to her. There's a lot to predict, there's a lot to wonder, but I kind of want to get into a little psychological breakdown of this show because on like my third rewatch, I really got out my iPad and started just writing down everything about these characters and just trying to figure out everything this show has to offer because there is a lot in there and it is a very toxic and manipulative show and a lot of people online are uncomfortable watching it, which is totally valid. That's kind of how I felt about Euphoria actually. I don't hate that show, it's just something that I didn't actually find myself enjoying and it was a little bit uncomfortable at times for me to watch. But I do know it's a very popular show and there's nothing against anything with that show. It just wasn't something I personally enjoyed. So with this show, there is a lot to digest and get into, but let's roll it. At its core, Tell Me Lies is about the psychology of relationships, and more importantly, toxic relationships. This show highlights and paints them in a very bright light. It's right there for you. You're seeing it all in front of your face. They show us every angle and every aspect of what's going on behind a man that is gaslighting and manipulating and emotionally abusing a woman. You see the back end of the woman experiencing that and the downfall of that and the aftermath of going through that. The show does a fantastic job at showing the cycles of abuse and manipulation because from season 1 to season 2, there's a very repetitive patterns that show how psychologically damaging toxic relationships are. And not only toxic relationships, these are very dangerous relationships to have in your life. In Tell Me Lies, there's also a lot of intimate manipulation. Like a lot of the intimacy between Steven and Lucy is manipulated. It's really uncomfortable to watch at times, but it's really important to analyze from a psychological aspect. Understanding that is really important because there's moments where they definitely should be breaking up and they are saying the worst things to each other. Something that most people would never come back from, and that's the end of a relationship for them, but for them it ends in them being intimate and literally doing the most intimate act between two people after having such a damaging fight for your relationship. So that is very manipulating and confusing for your brain. That manipulates your brain chemistry like crazy. That manipulates your brain and the way that you think and how you make decisions so terribly. Also, a lot of people in this show have a lot of discomfort with their emotions and their mental state, to be honest. And as we see in this show, Lucy is constantly made to question her own perception of reality and herself, and every little decision she makes is questioned. Our girl is fully aware Steven is lying, fully aware of the manipulation, and honestly, there's just this version of her that wants to believe there's something good inside of him. This mirrors real life psychological manipulation where a victim internalizes a lot of blame to make up for said person's terrible actions, aka Steven just being this terrible psycho human. She internalizes so much blame to make him just seem better. It's almost like a way to gain yourself a sense of control. And the worst part about it is with Lucy, she's adapting to how unstable Steven is, making her unstable. And then you just become a mirror reflection of each other. Like when people say that it's a trauma bond and that they've just become embedded in each other's emotions, it's very true. Because when you are that entangled and in love with someone, no matter what they display, no matter how much instability and toxicity they show you, you're just really going to start mirroring it and reflecting that in yourself if you don't get out of it. And it's painful and hard to get out of, and this show absolutely shows you that. This show highlights addictive dynamics also very much. There are so many addictive tendencies within these characters, and Steven and Lucy are the two main ones, of course. Also, their relationship mirrors addiction. They almost are like someone addicted to alcohol or someone addicted to drugs, someone addicted to going to the gym too much, someone addicted to sugar. It doesn't matter what the addiction is, their relationship mirrors addiction. There are so many highs for them that are euphoric that make them feel like, yes, we're in the best relationship that we could ever be in. But their lows are so devastating that it's scary. Like the lows are very, very, very low. And like I said earlier, psychologically, this creates a trauma bond. You're just bonded by the trauma you're creating for each other. And then there's dopamine and stress hormones, and especially for females, our stress hormones all the way up there. And this just creates a cycle of repetition. And honestly, when you take the moment to separate how uncomfortable Tell Me Lies makes you, you do see the psychological breakdown of the manipulation and toxic relationships. The second thing I want to analyze a bit is the coming of age in this story. It's not like your Summer I Turned Pretty, Belly Conklin grows up and finally gets her childhood crush and marries him. Not that type of coming of age, but it is in its own way. There's also a lot of identity formation in this show. So many of them are forming their identities. Anytime college is in a show, it's a very symbolic moment for me of coming of age or identity. And specifically in this show, that's definitely a thing. Each character in Tell Me Lies especially is navigating who they are and who they want to be. And honestly, so many of them are trying to figure out who they are through unstable relationships. Like Pippa feeling like she's fully figured herself out. She's got it all figured out, but her relationship with Wrigley is super toxic and problematic and definitely not something she's worthy of, and she deserves a lot more respect. And obviously with Lucy, that's a no-brainer. Her trying to figure herself out and become who she wants to be in college while in an unstable relationship with Steven, that creates a mess and sets you up for complete failure in trying to figure out who you are. Lucy is so drawn to Steven because he embodies a lot of things that she hasn't faced in herself yet. So much dishonesty, avoidance, and control, and that is something that she definitely hasn't faced in herself, and she's facing fronthand in this relationship with Steven. And for Lucy, I've always felt like her journey within this show and her character specifically is reclaiming her identity, learning the difference between passion and pain. Very, very heavy on this. Learning the difference between passion and pain. Miss Lucy Albright. And especially with the love and obsession that her and Steven embody and show, that's definitely something that's been a part of her character's story, but I feel like in the end, it's just hopefully going to be her reclaiming her identity. Honestly, this one is really important and something that I noticed a lot when I was on like maybe a second or third rewatch, but the concept of time and memory. Because I remember when I was very much deep in my therapy appointments and my therapist was trying to explain to me how much trauma and toxic relationships can reshape your brain and your memory and distort it for you. And it's difficult when you're a young person, especially people in college. And how I said earlier with the flashbacks of past and present, this is important for showing how much toxic relationships and trauma distort your memory. A lot of the times, Lucy's recollections weren't just her having a flashback or them showing us a flashback. It's her literally realizing that this is going to be in her brain forever, and she can just randomly start to think about it and traumatizing herself again. And I feel like the show does a really good job at reminding you that sometimes you are trying to convince yourself that this love is real. It's very obvious with Lucy as a character herself how much what she's gone through has distorted her memory. There was a moment where she literally only did one side of her eye for makeup, and that's very minor, obviously, but that type of stuff shows how much she is out of her own reality and how sad it is. And last but not least, I want to get into the emotional evolution of this story and just the deeper meaning of Tell Me Lies in general and what my brain came to about in understanding when watching this show. For me, by the end of this show, it wasn't just about toxic relationships and heartbreak. I feel as though it was wholeheartedly about self-reclamation and regaining your own truth in yourself. Lucy's character teaches us that sometimes growth is going to be painful, and it doesn't always come from the most convenient situations. You might have to grow in life at a really painful and not comfortable route. And however that looks is different for everyone. With Lucy specifically though, I feel like the show shows you that she has gotten so lost in somebody else's lie that to fully reclaim herself, she needs to find her own truth and start living in that truth and not someone else's lie. And more importantly, her own lie. Overall, Tell Me Lies has been really fun to analyze and watch. I feel like this is a show that everyone has very different broad opinions for. I've shown people this show and they're like, girl, I can't, I hate it. Some people are like, I love it, it's one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. Some people can't even get past the first episode, which is valid. For me, this show has been so fun to watch and I cannot wait for season 3. Who knows what we're going to be getting. I'm going to close out this episode with that for you. I hope this was a fun one. As always, you being here and listening and supporting is one step closer to me and accomplishing my dreams. So thank you so, so much. I love you all.